Do you enjoy interactive author discussions? Then welcome to Story Behind the Story with Reese Ryan, where romance readers and authors connect. I'm Reese Ryan, author of sexy emotional romantic fiction featuring characters 30 plus who navigate career crisis and family drama while finding love. And this week, my guest is romance legend, Miss Shirley Hailstock. So I'm super excited about talking to her today. So excited to hear about her experience over the last 29 years of writing romance, her take on the industry now, what she wished she had known back then, and her advice for romance writers now. But before we get to that, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. This is a very interactive show, so we look forward to your questions or and comments. You can drop them in the chat, and I'll address them as we have time. And if you are new here, I encourage you to subscribe so that you'll be aware of all the upcoming author chats as that I have coming up as well. And you can see past author chats as like ones with Miss Beverly Jenkins, Brenda Jackson, Kristen Higgins, Kennedy Ryan, just a long list of fantastic author chats that we've had here. So you'll be able to connect with those as well as stay on top of who's coming next and post your questions for our guests. Uh, Quick note that my upcoming book, Return to Hummingbird Way, is available for pre-order. It actually goes on sale next Tuesday, and I'm going to be doing a release day party in the Racy Reads Facebook group. So if you look in the description for the chat, I think I put the Racy Reads link in there. If not, if you're on Facebook, just if you Google, if you search for Racy Reads Party Room, you'll find it. Also, wanted to let readers know that there are two big giveaways that I'm involved in right now. One's the bouquet of books with Susan Mallory, Ray Ann Thane, and a bunch of other authors. The link to that is definitely in the description here. And then there is a second giveaway that's Small Town Romances. Sponsored by Forever, who is the publisher of Return to Hummingbird Way. They're giving away to 15 readers a small town romance, as well as a book bow book sleeve. So you can sign up for that as well in the link below. Also, if you came from my newsletter, the links to both of those giveaways are in the newsletter as well. So that's on that. And then if you are joining us from Facebook, don't forget that in order to for us to see who you are, your profile and your name, you have to give StreamYard permission. And the link to that on Facebook is at the bottom of the description, where you can allow StreamYard to have permission to see who you are if you have not done so before. So let me see. Anything else that I didn't learn? So I'm always forgetting stuff here. Okay, it looks like I remembered everything that I needed to tell you in terms of giveaways and things like that. And so now, if you're as excited as I am to talk to our guest today, Miss Shirley Hailstock, definitely make sure you give us a thumbs up. That helps other viewers find the show as well when the show is over. So make sure to do that and subscribe if you have not. And then I'm ready to say hello to our guest for today, Miss Shirley Hailstock. Hey there, Miss Shirley. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so glad to have you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. So, for anyone who is not familiar with you and your vast bibliography, tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you write.
Well, I'm a romance writer, and a little bit about me. I'm for some reason just now I start the cough.
Always, that's the way it always is.
I'm a romance writer, and I've been out at it for a number of years. I never actually thought of writing a book, but I was going to be the first African American astronaut, female astronaut.
Mm.
That was my goal.
Oh, wow.
Didn't sort of work that way. So I channeled it into writing by making my characters, they had something to do with flying. Um, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I wasn't born there. I was born in South Carolina. I grew up
Okay.
in Buffalo. Went to school at Howard University. Chemistry major, math minor. But how on earth did you get to writing? Always forget. Um, but I sort of like they have the left brain, right brain, and I don't know how they work. So the creativity works on one side, mathematics works on the other, and they both work for me. So that's a little, but I love writing, creating the characters and going on adventures with them, even though I guide them actually for a while, but every writer knows that when the characters take over, the book takes off and you just go with it.
Yes,
That's the
yes.
part.
They do. They absolutely do their own thing, don't they?
Yes. Oh boy.
So, how did you get started with writing romance?
Well, that's a little strange way to do it, to do the writing is I actually took a dare. A college friend was from New York, and we were riding the subway one day, and I was reading a Harlequin romance. I don't know what title it was, even to this day. But she asked me what I was reading. I just turned the book over so she could see the cover because I didn't even know the title. And I told her I'd read so many of these books I could write them, and she dared me to write one.
Oh my goodness.
I went home from that day, and I was going to write it that weekend. Took me a year. So I discovered that, it's harder than you think it is.
Yes, yes.
A lot harder. So that's how I got started. Once I finished the book, I picked her up again. This time we were going to my house, which was in New Jersey. And I picked her from the train station and gave her the 25 pages of chapter 1. And she read them without saying a word. And then I go, well, what did you think? And she goes, where's the rest? I go, there is no rest. That's it. So she goes, you got to write the rest of this book. So I wrote it.
Wow. I love that.
And I just kept going after that. It was so much fun. Because, I hadn't gotten to the part where you get it published, but writing was fun.
It is a different world, isn't it? Things
Yes,
change a lot when you're doing it for fun or for whatever reason versus being on the publishing side.
Contract and dates.
And deadlines. Oh my goodness, yes. That makes a big difference. I love that. We're all very grateful to that friend who dared you. So, for anybody who is new to you, if they were just coming to meet you or coming to meet to be introduced to your work, which book would you recommend that they start with and why?
I knew that question was coming. So it has several answers. I always ask a question after that is like, what kind of books do you like? And then I give them options. I write romantic suspense. I write straight romance. I write romance that has no sex in it. And I write romance that has sex in it. So what kind of book do you like? And then I would give them a title from that category of books. People always ask me, well, what's your favorite book? And of course, it's the one you're writing. Because you're having so much fun during the writing. But my very first book is definitely always going to be, I have a great place in my heart. But my favorite book is White Diamonds. And I wrote it in a month. Just about a month. I was very busy. I had a full-time job. I had 2 small children. I was president of my chapter, my romance chapter, and we had our first sold-out conference. So everything had to be done. And I was like the only person with a computer.
Oh my goodness.
Day. So once the conference and all that was over, it's like my deadline was a month later.
Oh my goodness.
And
wow.
So I went from having 50 pages written to having 550 pages written.
Oh, whoa. Oh my goodness.
And there were things that, when you just got to keep going. I don't have time to waste a day thinking about, should I do this or should I do that? It's like, nope, straight ahead, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I plot So I looked at my outline, my plotted outline to see, well, is there anything I can leave out of here? And I couldn't because it would create a hole in the story. So I just kept going. And that was when we had, we didn't have page count deadlines. You could write 120,000 words if you wanted.
Wow.
Uh, so I think White Diamond's 130,000 words because I always go over.
I've been doing that a lot lately these days as well. I was proud of myself this last book because I only went over like, I don't know, 4,000 because I have been writing over a lot of late.
Mm.
So since I started writing single title, I had really been overwriting my categories because I'm like, oh
Oh yeah, we have to like get all this detail in there.
yes. And I pack a lot of story in my category. So so, so there's definitely lots of cuts. There's definitely going to be lots of deleted chapters for readers on these most recent books of mine for sure.
Well, you can use those.
Yeah. I definitely find ways to use them afterwards when it's like, especially if it's a complete chapter, or a complete scene. So, we talked earlier before we came on about the fact that it's been 29 years. You weren't sure yourself. We were doing some math before we before we got on the air. So it's been 29 years. So what are some of your fondest memories as an author over the course of your 29-year career as a publisher?
Oh, it's always going to be the people I met. I've met so many people. There was one instance where I think we had like a motivational person, and they said, they wanted you to turn around and shake hands with somebody that you didn't know. And my answer was, I have to leave the room. I'm in here. But the people I met and the information that they just give to you without any kind of prompting. Even you could just be talking about a book when you're writing, not even mentioning that you're having a problem, and they would say something just clicked in your head, and it was like, oh yeah, I could do that. Or just friends,
Yeah.
mostly friends, and how supportive the romance community is. They were my first, and then later on when I heard about others, I've never been to anybody else's convention, or like I've never been to the science fiction writers, or I did belong to a horror writers group, but we started they were a spinoff from the romance group.
Okay.
I already knew those people. But once I found out that they're not as open and giving as we are, and I can't imagine it, but it's out there. That's what people tell me, but I haven't been to any of them, so I don't actually experience it. But just how friendly people are. I mean, I was at a Barbara Vay event, and it was my first one, and people from other tables would give me things to put on mine because I didn't know what to do. And I did have a theme, and they would say, "Here, you could use this," or "Here,
Oh
here's a
man,
page
that's awesome.
hours in."
That's awesome.
Things like just to help you, just to make your table as great as theirs. Or,
Yeah,
if they saw something you needed, here, use it.
I love that. I have had really great experiences with the romance community. What, like you said, the generosity and stuff
Hmm.
is really been great, and the things that you learn from other people, just having these basic conversations, or even some of the like chats and stuff like this, where you just learn so many things
Yeah,
that you weren't
like
expecting.
that display behind you. I like
Thank you. So yeah, little things like that, right? You pick those up, and you talked about people and all the people that you met. So first of all, I want to say hello again and thank you for joining us, to everybody who's joining us. And we have several people who are here from Facebook, so thank you for being here. And if you weren't here earlier, if you're commenting from Facebook and you've not previously given StreamYard permission to see your avatar and your profile, then we can't see who you are. We can see your comments, but we can't see who you are. It just says Facebook user. So if you have not done that before, you want to go to the bottom of the description and click the link to give StreamYard permission to see your Facebook profile and name, so we'll know who who's talking to us. But just want to say hello to some of the folks tonight. So Uzu, thank you so much for joining us. And Mama Tony says good evening. Thank you so much for being here. And Darnell, thank you for joining us. And then we have several Facebook users who are, saying thank you. And a lovely story about how you were dared by your friend to write. And that's how you started writing. I love that so much. So you told us about, some of your best memories are of the 29 years and the people that you've met and the generosity that you've experienced. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in your career as an author, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I don't know if I overcame them. It's marketing. Even before we had self-publishing, and we were, books were published by our publishers, but we would get the books, but they didn't put any money behind it. So how do people know you have a book if they've never heard of you before? And especially on a first book. So here I am with a degree in marketing. And I could not, the internet came along and all bets were off. All the stuff that you knew how to do in communication devices like television, radio, magazines, postcards, all that stuff went out the window because the internet just blew up, and it provided, I didn't know it was going to blow up that fast. But once people learned a little bit, more piled on top of it, and more and more and more. So when she gets to the question on how did you how did you do this? It's like I tried things. I've tried a lot of marketing projects that didn't work.
Yeah. That's my Achilles heel too.
Marketing is a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Could work, but then it can't. And so let's be Edison and go, we just found 900 ways why it doesn't work. We're looking for that one that does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wish I knew then that the internet was going to be such an important tool in the life of a writer. And it didn't have anything to do with writing. It has to do with trying to sell your books, trying to reach your audience, actually find your audience, so that those are the people that you can talk to, you can publish to. They're out there looking for you. So,
right.
And of course, you're not the only one. They're very discerning. Our romance writers are readers are extremely discerning. They know what they like and what they don't like, and they will give you several chances to be the person. But once you're not fulfilling their need, of course, they go look for someone else. We writers do the same thing. We were readers, and there are people that I love, the people that you buy without even looking to see what the book's about.
Right.
It's an automatic buy.
Right.
And there are some of those, but that's what I wish I knew. And I wish I knew the secret to marketing to those people, because I really don't. The internet is, to me, difficult to find the people you need to send your information to. And they have to be willing at that point in their life to read it, to look at it. Because, we all have days when, I'll read that later. I'm just not in the mood to do this. And we can't find out what's the best day to just do your marketing. Is it every day? Is it Tuesday? I've heard that Tuesday is the best day. Where that came from, I have no idea. And I don't know if it works, but when I have new things to put out, I try to put them out on Tuesday.
That is when most of the books are published, right? By publishers and stuff. They come out on Tuesday.
I don't know.
So,
I can tell you, like TV, you could notice that a lot of the new things that come on a particular day. And when I used to go, well, long ago, not now, but when I used to go to the movies, there was a particular day when all the new movies would be coming out. So, you would go on that day, or now they just tell you what day it is. It's like this will be available on, and then they give you a date, and so you can go to the movies on that day.
Yeah, definitely the internet has changed the game, right?
Yeah,
When it came, and it just even for publishers, I feel like a lot of them are still trying to figure out with the shifting landscape how to connect, and
absolutely.
how to stay in front of
And they have more money,
readers.
so they can try more things.
Yeah, they definitely it definitely makes a difference, and like it changes things too, because especially with social media, right? People readers can be more connected, more directly connected
Yeah,
with
with
authors
the
and
author.
stuff, and it changes everything very much. And every time you look up, there's like some new social media site that you're trying to decide, is that worth the investment of my time or not? Because our primary thing we have to be doing is writing.
It's writing.
But like you said, even when we have a publisher, there's still so many things that you have to do. So I mean, I've been on these constant, you know, hamster wheel of deadlines, but finally I finished the book, and like I'm in between like going to finish the next project, and I, just took a few days. And so I took a few days to do nothing. And then I took the last 2 days, I'm like, I couldn't believe how much stuff I had to catch up on that was not writing. Like all these other things that I need to do.
You like the dishes and the laundry?
not even house stuff. I don't even want you to know what's on the other side of the room. It's like not
Right.
even house stuff. Like I got a chance to do some of the house stuff over the weekend. But and then my grandkids were here over the weekend too. So
Oh,
that was a handful. But just business related stuff, marketing things, admin things, just a ton of things like that. So like, so much to do, so much to do.
yes. I usually try to clean up after afterwards because you accumulate so much stuff in relation to the book. And
Yes,
I mean, it's probably
that's
about
where I'm at right now.
the, some kind of research that you're doing. And so, even though we use the internet more for our research tool than we use a book, there's still stuff that accumulates
Right.
in relation to writing that book, or going back to look at it. Like a lot of things I have to learn how to do. So I would find these websites and I would print off the information, or I would
Mm,
give myself the link, and then I could go back to find it again. But you can't highlight a link.
no.
I can once I printed it, I could like
Right.
highlight the things that wanted, or either download on my computer and do a highlight on a Word file. But that is just paper here and paper there.
And books, so many craft books,
Look,
because that's the other thing I kind of really figured out in the last couple of years, is that I had a lot of reference books on my Kindle, but I realized that when it comes to reference books and craft books for writing and stuff, I really prefer to have a physical book that I can highlight. And so now even some of the ones I already owned digitally, I've been purchasing them. And so I do, like you said, I have these stacks of books, like, on this topic, on that topic, that pile up. So yes, it's a disaster right now in here.
yeah,
And
and
I need to, and
other
I,
things, the little jump drives, little jump drives that you need for
mm,
either backup or moving it. Like I have a computer practically in every room, but it's not really that bad. But I would go and like I was going to bed, getting in the bed, but not going to sleep. And I want to use the machine that's up there, so I put in my jump drive in and copy the file and then go up. And then but I have a main computer, so everything should be up to date on that one. So I would bring it back down in the morning and upload it, so I have the latest version there. So the good thing about it is to ever lose the original, the full one. At least on some computer, I have it partially done. I would have to totally rewrite it,
eh,
but it also goes to the cloud. And
you said you have a computer in every room. So for me, is I use my laptop. I carry it everywhere. So, but I have a desk or two in every room. In every room. So I have 2 desks in this room, and there's a desk
Oh,
out there, and there's a desk I use down in my bedroom. And sometimes I decide I want to write at the dining room table, and sometimes I want to just write at the table, at this chair or whatever. So there's so many different places that I like to write. So it's
no,
wild.
I like to write in my office, but I haven't done it in years. Because I have a daughter, and there's not a lot of space in that room, walking around space. So when she was little, and her eye got to be desk level, I moved out. It was just too stressful. I was just sure she was going to bang into something, and we'd have to go to the emergency room, and I'd have to explain how I did not do this to this child. So I had already had a desk in my family room. So I bought one of those like $300 computers where you get everything. You get the modem, you get this or all those pieces, and and that's where I've been ever since.
Oh wow. Well, then it must be working for you.
Yes, I can move around. I have an Alpha Smart in here, so I can
Oh
sit on
yes, I
the
love my Alpha Smart.
I could sit on the sofa and work on that. Or I could, so there are times when it gets uncomfortable to keep sitting in the same chair.
Right.
So
Right.
I could
And
move
it's not
around.
physically good for you, honestly. So
Well,
it's
I get
good.
up and walk every hour, so
Oh, that's good. That is something more of us should do, myself particularly, because yeah, definitely it's not,
every I
and that is a danger of being a writer, right? The sedentary lifestyle that writers tend to have. So
long ago, when we had this thing on book in a week, you don't actually write a book in a week, but the preparation for that week of writing um, included things to keep you from hurting yourself. If
mm,
your back and your neck and your shoulders and all of that hurt. And one of them was to get up every hour and do at least 5 minutes worth of physical things. And so I walk. I walk around my house. And now I have my phone set for every hour so I could get up and walk.
my Apple Watch did that, and the thing died for the second time. I don't even know where it is anymore, but
Oh,
I need to find it because that
mine's
was
on the
very
arrow,
helpful.
it's on the phone.
Yeah,
See,
that was very helpful. Okay, so you have your phone to do it
yes.
as well.
And
Mm,
it's so I don't know. My shoulders don't hurt. My back doesn't hurt.
that's
Uh,
good. That's good
I
because all
do
those
get
things will start aching if you just sit and hunched over the chair and don't
yeah.
move around. So for sure. So I'm going to stop and address a couple of questions before I
Okay.
ask you my next question. So let me see. Okay. All right. Uzu has a question. With your science background,
From
Howard
HU.
University, have you thought about writing a female science, astronaut romance? I read somewhere that you wanted to be that's right. You said that already. She did just say that. So that she did say she wanted to be the first black female astronaut. so, so have you considered that?
I did consider writing a female astronaut story, and I haven't done it, but it's still on the list of things to do. I do like that, that world. I don't particularly want to go in who has that rocket? Enron?
Oh, Tesla.
Yeah, him.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
No, I don't trust
I
that.
know. No, no, no,
But
no,
female astronaut and the training that goes with it needs a lot of research, and
yes.
I haven't done that research. But yeah, doing a female astronaut is definitely something I would like to write about.
Oh, okay. I like it. I like it. We're gonna keep reminding you of that then, because we got people sitting here waiting for it. Uh, Darnell says yes. Yep. I noticed that a lot of new books are released on Tuesdays. Yep. So I noticed.
She must be the thing.
Yeah. So Tuesday, that I never thought about why. I just knew that a lot of
Oh, I know why.
publishers
Why is
did it.
because if you wanted to get on one of the lists, the New York Times list, you could get all the days in from Tuesday. I think the day they reported it to the Times was like Monday. So if
Mhm.
you do Tuesday, you can go
You get a full week.
the whole week.
Thank you. Look, see what I'm talking about? The things that we learn. There you go. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, that's an excellent question, Veronica. Veronica Lockett asks, what's your favorite underappreciated novel? Because I feel like for every author, we have novels where like, oh my God, I love that story so much, or I thought the story was so good, and it just doesn't get a lot of love. So what book or books would you say are
Oh,
novels that
I
you
don't,
wish more
that's
people
a
read?
really good question, but I can't
Mhm.
even think of the answer right now because you know what? All my book titles just went away.
That I look, I understand that too.
Oh,
It's
oh,
like when somebody says, "What's your book about?"
White Diamonds didn't make any of the large contests. It won or finaled in something like 20 or 30 romance contests, and it did not make the Rita at that. It didn't final in the Rita. So I don't know if we say that's underappreciated or not.
And which book is that again?
White
Oh,
Diamonds.
that was my
It
diamonds.
was
Okay.
definitely a disappointment for me because I was for sure thinking that one was gonna make it, but it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The others, uh, I don't know. And Kristen Hanna told me this story once about a book that she wrote that like put all her heart in and everything, and she was sure was going to final in the arena, and it didn't. And then she said, then she wrote this book that she just like it's a contract book. She had to get it out, so she just kind of wrote the book. That one won. So it's like you don't know. You don't
You
know
just never know, right? You don't know.
to find in that what touched them, their emotions to make that book what it is.
Wow. Okay, let me see. Okay, this is another interesting question for Veronica. What was an early experience where you learned that language had power? That's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. Language have power.
Yeah.
I think I
And
was really young though. I think I was in like maybe the third or fourth grade. Um, and I wrote something that I remember it was a story on Woodrow Wilson. It came to me the other day for some strange reason, um, and it had to do with some historical event, which I do know what the historical event was because I'm a history buff. But uh, what I wrote in there had to do with that League of Nations. And look, I'm in the fourth grade, right?
wow.
I wrote it in hindsight, which I had not known that was a thing. Where it's basically you're telling the story. You're at the end, and you go back and tell the story. What do we call that? Back back story?
Fort, wait a minute.
I think we call it back.
Yeah, okay. So you're telling what happened in the past. That's
Back.
backstory, yeah.
So he already knows it, and then it's like so. That's basically I was a person telling that story, and I realized how much power that had in the words that you could use and how people would take it and work with it. I mean, some of them would use it as something for their own experience.
Mm.
Like my first book had a child in it. Now the child doesn't die, thank goodness. Child doesn't die, but was very sick, and needed a blood transfusion. And I got letters from people, and one letter made me cry, and I'll probably do it again. But she talked about losing her own baby and how that book had helped her get through all the grief. And I
Wow.
was just in tears reading this letter.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow. Oh my goodness.
so in the fourth, I mean, I wasn't in tears in the fourth grade, but it was like people who read that paper, it was only like a page, were so enthralled with how could you possibly know all of this about the League of Nations? Like it was in my head.
And you're the League of Nations as the precursor to United Nations, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
we didn't join. The U.S. did not join.
hmm
So we always say that's why it failed, but I don't know if that's the truth or not.
Wow. And I know for me, like I fell in love with stories, hearing stories read to me when I was really, 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 really young. But I think I think it was a reading Pride and Prejudice. I think that was the first book that really made me realize how just somebody as a storyteller could make you feel all these things, make you want to choke the protagonist, make you, happy for them and cry with them and just
Oh yes, that's
all those roller coasters. That's the first book I really, really feel like made me feel that, and then also made me say, I want to do that for other people and tell stories that have
oh
emotion
no, I
in it.
never
So
got that. I was just thinking, what was the first book that made me? I don't know. I don't remember the first book that made me want to write, want to be a writer, because it was something that I read that I did not like, and it's like I can do a better job than this. So I'm very glad I don't remember what the book was, because people would ask me, and it's like I can't answer that question. The author might know. Oh no, I wouldn't answer that.
Oh
But
my god.
there have been books like, people have asked, what was the book that made you change, that kind of changed your life and made you go in another direction or something like that. And I get Harriet the Spy or some children's book that I never read. Laura Ingalls, I never read any of those. I didn't even know they were books. um, so strangely enough, my book was The Stand by Stephen King, because I at when I finished that book, not only did I realize, it was basically, you get this horror story of the world dying, the pandemic thing. Um, but I came away with that saying, you have got to stand for something. You can't
Mm,
be wishy-washy.
mm,
You have something that you have to be willing to die for. So that was where it's like it's like that's probably an over arc in the book, because all the words that are in there don't really say that, but that's what you hear or you get when you think of what does this story mean. And I'm
right.
sure he didn't think of that when he was writing it. But it's what I got out of it. What somebody else got out of it may be totally different. Um,
And I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that, that was the underlying message there. So
so
I'm like, because I remember I had already been writing for a few years, and I was at an RWA meeting, and an author did a workshop about like the underlying themes of your writing, and I'm like, I don't have themes, you know, or whatever. And I remember after that talk that I went back and I looked at everything I wrote, and I realized that there were like three pervasive themes that were coming up all the time in my stories, generally speaking, and that's still the case. And
I
I actually lean into it. Now that I know it, I lean into it. I lean into the thing.
I must have been in the same workshop, because I
Probably
went
the same
back
person
and
came to
listened
yours too.
and it's like, okay, I write strong women, I write equals, where the male and female protagonists are equal in strength, and I don't mean physical strength, but they're equal to each other.
Yeah.
One's not stronger than the other. One is not going to um, wash over, walk over the other's thoughts and dreams. Um, and there was another thing that was in there too. I don't remember what it is. And the settings were always um, things that they could do, but I didn't see very often. I mean,
Mm.
they were ownership. I would have people who own like one of those exercise studios that we used to go to, and my person would own a corporation. So it was like, well, they were always smart, always intelligent, and pretty pretty comfortable with themselves. So it's not like, I feel bad. I put on the front, but I feel bad inside. So unless
Yeah.
they did something bad, then they could feel bad.
And for me, my three themes that I discovered, and like I said, they when I say them now, probably people will go back and read them like, yeah, she does write about that all the time. But it's family, forgiveness, and self-identity. So those issues always end up coming up in some way for at least one of the characters in the story. Just always does. So now I just lean into it, now that I know that.
Right.
But also, so since I kind of realized that um Pride and Prejudice and Little Women had such a big impact on me as a reader, but also as a writer. So that kind of unconventional heroine, and again, family drama, messy, family are also themes that carry over in all of my work. So, like I said, it was something that was inadvertent at first until I took that workshop. And then after that, I realized, and I think then at that point, I really embraced it and made it part of my brand. So that was helpful. That was really helpful. More hellos. Hello, Tanya. I'm so glad you were able to make it over here. And Readeropolis is commiserating with you, understanding about the jump drives. I'll be honest, I have like some unopened packages of jump drives around here. I haven't used one in so long because, like I said, I pretty much always use this, and then I have like the backup system, OneDrive or whatever, and so I usually use that. So I haven't really used one much. Every now and then I'll need one, and I'll look around. I'll have some empty packets of them or whatever. And when you talked about not wanting to go to space with the person who the other one, the Virgin Airlines guy, yeah, I forget his name.
Elon Musk.
No, the Virgin Airlines guy, I want to say it's Richard something.
I don't know who that is.
Or Jeff Bezos, which is the Amazon guy.
Well, the Virgin Airlines
would be the best bet. And I'm sorry, we can't see your name. So if you haven't gone already to the bottom to give StreamYard permission to see your name, so we'll know who you are. Hello, Kathy. I'm glad you're here too, hon. Kathy, author Kathy Douglas. And DL White says, I missed the first half hour. I'll watch it back. Hey. Thank you. Good to have you here. Okay. And Jennifer Copeland, thanks so much for joining us. And Jennifer says, Miss Shirley, I love your books.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, Jennifer, I hear that. Little Women is one of my favorite childhood books. That was definitely one of my faves. And Tanya Brown Rivers also says, I love the books. Absolutely. So, okay. So now my next question. So we know how incredibly fickle the publishing industry can be. Mm-hmm. So like, there's folks, and that's in a lot of entertainment industries, right? You have somebody who's a flash in the pan, who's so, like a bright burning star, and then you never hear from them again. So what are some of your secret? What would you say is like the secret to your ability to have longevity in this industry? Given the fact that
keep writing.
You say you just like Dory, just keep swimming and just keep writing. I love it.
Well, you actually do have to, first of all, have thick skin, because the publishing industry, the people who publish the traditional books, will try to wear you down. I mean, they're not really doing it on purpose, I don't believe, but they're doing it. If you're really, really popular, they want more and more books from you. So some authors are like Beverly and Brenda. Brenda, I know, but I don't know about Beverly. Has contracts for like so many books a year is ridiculous. I don't think she has time to breathe or eat, and definitely no time to go to the bathroom because she has to write so many books a year. I forgot the question, but
your tips for having longevity in this industry
is basically writing just continue to write more and more books, because you will get things from publishers, I would say, not if you're doing self-publishing. You will get requests to write another book. But they want, and you want a better book. You don't want to write the same book. You want to write something different. They want the same kind of book, but not the exact same book. So how would I, why do I keep forgetting this question? Longevity. Okay. If people tell you that they don't want any more books from you, that is not true. They are fickle enough that if you sell enough books, they want one from you too. But so they'll have you come back. I've been told that we don't want any more books from you. It's like, okay, well, I'll sell it to somebody else. And then I sold one to them.
There you go, right there.
I sent it to another editor. So and to basically stay attuned with the times. If you were writing the same book they wrote in the 80s, the people these days don't want to read that because it doesn't reflect who we are now.
Right.
We grow, we get older, we have our needs change, our point of views change on what we want to see. Like, do you want to watch the high school kids on all those high school movies that they have? Do you want to watch the drug, the drug scene? People getting a lot of money because they're selling drugs. Those were like the gangster books. It's what we call them. I don't know what category they really had. My friends, we just call them gangsters. Um, things like that. You just keep doing what you're doing, but you stay abreast of what's going on in the world. I'm not thinking that you need to put any history in there because right now pandemic books are not selling. Um, but so
Yes.
I mean, maybe in the future they will. I mean, even the 9/11 books. There was that movie that came out with a guy I really like, actor I really like. I would never watch that movie just because
Yeah.
it's too close. So
Yeah.
you can't. You do need to take stock of what's going on in the world. But that was something that was extraordinary. It affected the entire earth. So I don't know if you want to. I know people. We asked editors that question, and they said it was too soon. But
Mm.
some people I know have written them. I don't know how they're self-published. I don't know how well they're selling. I haven't. I don't look at those lists that they have on Amazon unless my book's on it. But so I haven't. So I don't know whether there's actually made that top 100 list. Um, but those, all I can say is just keep producing um, your series. When somebody finds your series, they want to read all the books in the series, and they want them in order, which is why authors tend to put numbers on them now. Book one,
Mm.
book two, book three, so people would know. Otherwise, you get mail saying, "What order are these?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all I really can say for longevity. If you like what you do, you keep doing it, and things. I get ideas from everywhere, from something I heard somebody say in the supermarket, to watching a TV program, to reading a book that I like or don't like,
Mm.
um, and saying I could write something like this. What did I see? What's something I saw recently, and it's like, okay, oh, it was all the Christmas movies that were on. And it's like, okay, I want to write a Christmas story, and we will not have a snowball fight. We will not have people on a ladder putting the things on the Christmas tree and falling off into the hero's arms. So let's do a story that doesn't have any of those tropes.
Oh, the usual Hallmark stuff.
So so I started making little notes on writing that kind of a book, and giving them some kind of things to do that aren't the tried and true, every TV movie you watch has the same three items going on. So give them something different. And when you're in the romantic suspense, don't have it be the obvious person.
Mm.
Let them guess who it is.
Yeah.
Uh, so I
That's a
like
good
those, the twists themselves. And if you write it well enough, by the time you get to revealing who the villain is, you could pick anyone. And I've had that where I said I'm a plotter, so I've already written down everything that I know about the story, or con- conceptualized it into a few words. And then when I do tend to stick with the person I chose the first way. But in the mail that I would get come back, it's like, I never thought it was him, or I never
Oh,
thought it
I
was
love that. Because
her.
we watch a lot of mysteries here, so I love when they fool me and I did not figure
When
it
they get you, yeah, it's like,
out.
I would not have thought of that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good advice there, like the main one being to just keep writing, just keep writing. Because it can be very discouraging when you're, especially when you have something like a project maybe that you're passionate about or whatever, and you're getting the door slammed in your face. And so, like you said about keep writing, because things change. The thing that nobody wanted today is the thing everybody wanted tomorrow. And just like you were saying, and then the other thing is, because of, especially with indie publishing, there's a lot more room for different things now. So even if it's something a publisher is like, you know what they like to say all the time, I don't know how to sell this. Okay. So if you don't know how to sell it, I'm going to sell it myself. So that's something that people can do now. So they're, like you call it gangster fiction, but urban fiction definitely is a huge category. It's a huge popular category, and a lot of people write and read it. So, it's just whatever it is. It can be anything, some kind of mashup of whatever, that a publisher might be like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. I can't sell this. And through indie publishing, people have been able to find their readers, their audience. So yeah, that makes a big difference. And then like what you said about being persistent, it's like, I want to see this out in the world. You don't want this, then there's somebody else who does. So lots of good tips. And like you said, you got to have that thick skin. You do. That you do.
Yeah, you have to be able to take rejection and go on.
There's a lot of it in this business, for real.
When I got it wasn't my first rejection, but it would stop me from writing for like a couple of weeks. I just couldn't get anything done. And until finally it's like, well, I'm going to just not care. Well, you can tell yourself that. Doesn't make it true.
Yeah, that's true. I'll be honest. I've recently had, not recently, but like within the last few months, I had an experience like that where it definitely did affect my creativity and just kind of ability to write. It did. I needed to take a moment to just deal with it.
The good thing about that is it gets less and less. I mean, I've gotten rejections even after I was published, and I go, oh well, there's a rejection letter. Just throw it over there. I got a book to write.
Yeah.
Go on and you go on and do it, because you can jump into that world if you don't let it. But it doesn't happen immediately. I mean, immediately, it's like I said, it shut us down. And other things, like when you get an edit back from your editor, and there's certain things that they don't want in the book. And when you write the next book, you think about, well, can I get this past my editor? Those kind of things.
I always try.
Yeah, I don't even
always try. 99% of the time I get it through, but I'm always gonna try.
Oh, they were really big about, they say it all the time, all the late night talk shows. But when we used to have to put up words for the male sexual part, you couldn't use the word penis. And I stuck it in a book thinking for sure they're going to take it out. Nobody said a word.
It is always like that, right? The things you think are going to be a big deal, like nobody even pays attention to. It's just like, like you'll be so stressed over, like, is this going to go through? Are they going to be okay with this? And nobody even bats an eye.
But you might spend 2 or 3 days thinking about that after you wrote it. It's like, well, should I write that scene? Or then you wrote it and went on. It's like, can I get past that? Because if they don't take this scene, then the rest of it has a hole. I don't actually think about them anymore. I just write it. I don't think about, will my mother read this? Now, my mother died when I was 10 years old, so she's not going to read this.
But
someone else.
Yeah. No, that's a big deal for people. Like, is a mom to read it?
Or the pastor's wife. Things like that. It's like, they know. They already know. I don't use too much profanity. It just doesn't seem to have a place. I don't speak it that way, so I don't write it that way. I'm sure there's some in my books, but very little, just because I don't really need it.
So my next question, we've already touched on some of the stuff, but I'm going to stop just for a minute and go back because there's some interesting questions here. Hold on a second. Oh, Kathy says, I treasure the picture I took with Shirley Hailstock in Denver at the Harlequin party. I
Yeah.
love it.
Harlequin parties are always loud.
Yeah, there and there.
Don't want us
I
talking.
only went to one. 2019 was my first RWA conference. It was my first Harlequin party, and I had a ball. Danced all night. It was amazing. And I still have the socks.
I have the socks.
I love the socks.
They gave us socks because you know how you go to parties, you don't want to your high heels because you were cool on your way in. But they gave us socks so that we could take off our shoes and then not mess up our feet or your stockings or anything like that. So they gave us these little, and every year they give us socks.
Yeah. The socks are neat. I have like 3 pairs. I think I'm missing a pair or 2. But they run. So one of the someone who's watching us on Facebook, thank you for joining us. If you want us to see your name and your avatar, you have to go to the description at the bottom and click the link to give us permission. But it says, good evening, everyone. This is a new author to me. I'm going to have to try your book. So
thank you.
yes, we like that. And Tanya says, thank you for the nuggets. Yeah, we're getting lots of good information here. Uzu says, I don't ever want to read a pandemic romance. We talked about pandemic romances and 9/11 romances and stuff like that.
I've been to pandemic romance.
And Tanya said, interesting. I haven't read a novel even within a year after the pandemic being addressed. I've only seen a handful of them even mentioned, or I've only seen a handful of them where even, there's any acknowledgement that it ever happened. So yeah. And Paula White says, stop making fun of me. I like those Hallmark tropes.
So do I. I just don't want to see him in every one. Because I go, oh wait, she's gonna fall off that ladder. My nephew asked me once. He goes, "Have you seen this before?" It's like, nope.
And then Anna Taylor Swearingen, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry.
Oh yes, I know Anna.
Says, love being able to hear from Shirley. Love it. Okay. So my next question, and you've done some of this already, is you've given us some of your some great tips. So, but for authors like me and Kathy and DL and all these folks who are listening, who want to be authors with a long, lengthy 29-year plus career as well, what kind of tips would you offer us?
Well, first you need to read. And you read everything, cereal boxes, signs, and you read books that you don't write. Read outside of the genre. Definitely read the genre books that you want to write, but read outside of it to see things. And I analyze a lot of books. Don't tell the author because they don't want to know that you are pulling their book apart. So if I find some book that I like, that I really like, I want to know, why do I like this book? What did this author do to make me want to like her book? And so I would look at sentence structure. I would look at setting. I would look at character development. How did I find out that he was the brother of this other guy or sister? Things like that. And what did they think about them? Because usually you get a description, but and in that description is some kind of characterization of that person. It's like, she's the biggest gossip in town, or she just never thinks about anybody but herself. Always wears Lorraine from Lorraine and Shirley. Always has an L on everything. Just tidbits of things like that. How deeply do they go into the story itself and the setting itself? And don't make. And the thing is, you got to have a balance. So you can't go into one. You can go into characters, but not into setting deeply, unless you want to make the setting a character. And the only thing I can give you an example of was Seinfeld, where New York was a character. I never watched Seinfeld. I saw the soup Nazi episode.
Yeah.
I thought it was the last one, but it was the second last one. So when they actually did the last one, I didn't watch it.
The
And that's
the last episode was not my favorite, but I did watch the show. I watched the entire all of the season.
television brings me to another point.
Yeah.
Means don't watch so much TV. Watch what a few things. I'm not going to turn the television off totally, but you can have more time to write if you spend less time watching television.
This is true.
And that TV, everybody on television is a stereotype. So even white people are stereotypes. And all the diversity they're talking about now, they're still doing the same stereotypes. So people don't really act like that, look like that, talk like that. So that's something you need to be careful of if you're going to do diverse characters. Like I said, even white characters, you do need to make sure that they're more authentic. A lot of that was something that we got rejection on. Is like the characters don't seem real. Or family situations aren't real. Like, how often has your mother called you daughter or your father called you son? It's like, what? Don't we already know that's your daughter? There's just all kinds of things I'm just spewing out here of advice that you can take to the book. But please remember, the book is yours. So no matter what anybody else says about it, you make that decision at the end. Do you want this book to be like that, or do you want to take advice from everybody under the sun and do what they say? Like me, I don't need to take my advice. And there's nothing wrong with doing something differently. I used to think there was. I went to a workshop when I was first learning to write, and there was this thing about point of view. And I had a point of view purist. You do it this way. And she kept hitting the podium with her hand. And it's like, I went home and went, I don't do that. And again, it shut me down for weeks when I finally decided, I don't care. I'm going to do it this way. Because the story made sense to me written that way. So I had changed the point of view in the story. But what I'd done was the three little asterisks in the center, I changed the scene. I went from one scene to another scene, so I'm now in a different person's point of view. But the advice that some people give you is like, you have to do it that way. You don't have to do it that way. I think there
are definitely always exceptions, so it's just there's different things people like don't do it. And what do they always tell you about learning the rules so you know how to break them? So yeah.
I usually stay in the rules though. Can't remember any reason for breaking them. Except, maybe one thing. When you
I always think of reasons to break rules. I'm sorry.
Like, yes.
I always think I'm always thinking of reasons to break.
But if you identified a character with a certain set of values, and then you want to break those values, you have to have a good reason.
Have to have a good reason. Exactly. Yeah. You absolutely. It just it has to make sense if they do.
Right.
If they do something.
One example, it's like a guy who's a doctor who's so against, drugs and people using, illegal drugs, and then he has a brother or a sister who needs drugs, and he's a doctor, so he can readily get them. So you have that, that moral dilemma within his own mind, and you have his character as being somebody who's totally honest and somebody who totally doesn't do that. What does he do? Now that question you have to answer yourself.
Yeah.
But it makes the book much better that whatever decision you make has to be logical, and actually it doesn't have to be logical, because his logic will tell him, no, I'm not getting drugs. But you have the family, that brother or brother-sister relationship. One's dying, I can help.
Yeah.
But does the means justify the ends, or is that the other way around? The ends justify the means.
Yeah.
There's so much to tell. You can't take it all in.
There's a lot. There is so much. I can imagine over the course of your career, there's so many things, so many lessons that you've learned yourself that you wish you knew at the outset, that's another question. Like, is there something, if there was one thing that you wish you knew at the beginning of your career?
I already told you.
About the internet.
I wish I knew the internet was
About the internet.
I wish I'd known that Jeff Bezos was going to make the Kindle the Christmas present of the year. I would have had more content on the web at that time, because that Christmas year, everybody bought a Kindle for every woman they know. Mother, sister, girlfriend, everybody got a Kindle. And there was no content out there. So when the people who had content out there went right up to the top, and they remained there, even though they may not be the best books, but they got that following, and that following has stayed with them.
And one of the things you said earlier, I can't remember what we were talking about at the time, but what you were saying about people discovering you and then going back and reading your backlist. And that was, I guess that was back when we were talking about, advice about just keep writing. And, that is so true, because sometimes it might feel like you are, going nowhere, right? But anything can happen at any given time to turn things around, or to make you have one big book that people will discover, and then they'll just go and start, voraciously reading your backlist. So having that content out there it can be a big help.
It can, and you love those books. You wrote them. They're stories you wanted to read, so you put it out there. Somebody will read it. You're not going to have zero sales. Somebody will find it and read it. And I don't know if we have word of mouth anymore, because that used to sell a lot of books. And I mean,
oh, definitely. I feel like we still do, for sure.
I don't know that I can't. Well, I guess you can't see it anymore. Because I used to tell people all the time, if I read a really good book, it's like, I call it, you have got to read this book. And I haven't said that in years.
Really? Maybe it's changed a bit. Like, so I feel like now when I think word of mouth, it might not necessarily be like a relative or a best friend, but I have definitely bought a lot of books that have been recommended on Twitter.
Well, I've read a lot of books that have been recommended. They weren't recommended on Twitter. Usually it would be somebody from my chapter who would be talking about a book, or another reader that I know. It's like, I finished this book. I wanted another book to read. What would you recommend? And so she would tell me things. But see, she reads a lot of literary type books. I've read a lot of those that are really good. But if you ask me what I recommended, I go, do you like literary? Because you don't like literary.
That's the first question, right?
Or they give them, it's an Oprah-like book. So if you like the Oprah books, you might like this. Romances, I have my group of people that I love, that I buy all the time. And I have, people in my chapter that I buy and read their books. They might not be the best ones that I would choose to read, but I would support them, and as they would support me. So, it's just hard for me to, and now that they do recommendations, a lot of those recommendations I don't even want.
Yeah, even Amazon lets you, as an author, do recommendations now. So that's a thing. So you get to recommend not only books of your own. So they have questions like about which books of your own that you can recommend, but you can also recommend other authors'
Oh,
books.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a new thing. That's a newer thing.
Oh.
So like if you go into your author profile in Amazon, it'll have different questions. It'll ask you like, what's your most talked about book? What's your book you wish more people read? What's a book of yours that people could get lost in? Yeah, so ask questions like that. Then it asks you about other people's books as well. So that is a cool thing, because then it goes out to people who follow you, and it's another way to get people.
Yeah, I get them.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that is a cool thing to do. So okay, so we asked this question real quick. Okay, so a Facebook user said, "Wow, awesome career, literary longevity."
Thank you.
Tanya asks, "When do authors as yourselves are able to leisurely read other authors with deadlines?"
Only when you finish the deadline.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you true. Okay, so like, and that goes back to what you were saying before about how like Brenda Jackson or whatever is like got all these books, and I definitely have been going through that the last couple of years where I had all these contracts. So like I just got through with my second to last contracted book. I have one more contracted book, and like I'm not eager to sign another contract just because this is I needed a break. I needed a mental break because it was one book after another I was turning
Yes.
in. But even at that point of always having a book due, I got to the point where I just said to myself, I needed to be able to do some reading just for my own mental health. And also, as a writer, like you mentioned, you need to be a reader. So
Yeah.
if you're constantly writing and you're never able to read, then you're not ever refilling the well. So for me, I started taking time to do some reading, even though I'm under all these deadlines. So I might not sit and read a whole book like I would in between books, but I'll grab 15 minutes here and 15. It might take me forever to finish reading this book, and I might be reading 3 books at the same time. 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever here. But I'm still reading something. As a matter of fact, I'm reading right now this book right here. I kept seeing it, The Davenports, and by Crystal Marquise. And I was like, okay, you know what? I kept seeing that book, and I was like, I wanna read it. So I just started reading some, and I'm like, and so then when I got a little break in between projects, I started just reading it all up. It's so good. It's so good.
Usually reading 2 at one time.
Yeah,
Well,
me
I'm
too.
not reading, I'm listening to one and I'm reading another one.
Yep. And sometimes it's 3, like a physical book, an ebook, and then one I'm listening to. Just a little bit. So it takes, of course, longer,
Oh, yeah.
to do it that way. But it just gives me that break.
The books I listen to go faster because I'm in my car a lot.
Mm.
My daughter's special needs, and we have every doctor's appointment, dental appointment, every appointment in the world. Plus, we have all of this. We have a lot of tennis. She's a junior coach now at our tennis facility. Plus, she works at our tennis facility. So we're there practically every day. And since she's special needs, she cannot drive. I have to be there.
Yeah.
So I get these the books in the car, and I can listen to them on the way there and on the way back. And if I have to go out during the day, go to the grocery store or do something like that while she's in school, yeah, I always put the book in. And then my other thing is I like to read before I go to bed, before I go to sleep. So I'll read for half an hour.
Yeah.
If I'm close to the end of the chapter, I'll just finish the chapter. But I can't, otherwise, if I get so involved in the book, I won't go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. But
so
yes,
I time limit that.
I like that idea of like Tanya's question about how do you find time to read even with deadlines. It's like, so either like you wait in between them and then just really gorge, or find a little time to do a little bit here and there. Hello to you, Rhonda McKnight. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Rhonda.
Rhonda says the novel Black Cake is a book full of broken rules. It was so good. So I've been looking at that one, saying I want
to
read that one. Okay, so that's, now that you told me that, it just moved up. It just shot up the TBR list. So I like it. Okay, so let me see. Word of mouth, we were talking about. Jennifer says, I do it all the time. I'm always recommending books I've read, and she reads a lot of books, and she supports a lot of authors. So, yep. Okay, and Rhonda says, I get a lot of books from Twitter. Yep, me too. And I don't even spend that much time on Twitter. Me too. And I'm always like ended up buying some book that was recommended off there or whatever. So Paula also says, I found some great book recommendations on Twitter, and I did not spend a lot of time on there either. But she said, I also read Amazon book recommendations. So Rhonda says she also tries to read a little bit every night, even if it's just 10 minutes.
Yep.
And also listens to audiobooks when doing different things. So, okay. So, and author D.L. White says, I need my will feel creative. Yeah, me too. So I just get burned out if I can't do anything creative. And for me, And for me, TV can do that too, because like there are just some shows I feel like the character development is done really well or whatever. So things like that might be inspiring to me in terms of like that kind of creativity. And it's something that I do with my husband because we like reading, watching mystery shows and stuff together. So blah, blah, let me see. Hey, hello, Donna Hill. How are you? Black Cake
Donna.
was excellent, she says. That's fantastic to hear.
I
And
think I either have that book or it was recommended to me by the same person who does the literary books.
oh, okay. I feel like that one was a Reese Witherspoon book club one, Black Cake. And Mickey asked, do you put on audiobooks when you go to bed? I personally have tried it before and I always end up falling asleep. And so then I have to rewind back to figure out where I left off. But I've tried it before and for me, it doesn't really work well, but I still keep trying it every now and then. So.
I'm a real energy person and I just can't sit there or lay there and listen to a book. I have to be doing something and I feel like I would. So I used to like put a belt or the thing around your waist and hang the tape recorder off of it.
The Walkman.
I think it was just a tape recorder, a little or a tape player, just a little one, and I would put it on it. So if I was sweeping a kitchen or something like that, or washing dishes, which we have a dishwasher, but I would listen to them then. But I remember years ago I bought a car that didn't have a tape player in it, and I took it from the dealer to the place and had it installed, so I could listen to them in my car. Because that way I'm trapped. You can't do anything else except drive and listen to the radio. So I could listen to the tapes. When I went out and walked, I would have a tape. I mean, I would be listening to a book instead of listening to music. That most people thought you were listening to music, but I was listening to books. So that was how I got some of them in. But I really like to hold the book in my hand and read the pages, turn the pages. There's some authors that I really do like that I want to see the book. I want to hold the book. Other than that, holding their Kindle doesn't do it for me because I really like to know how far I'm in.
There are some
books
like that
on the bottom doesn't help.
And I've definitely made a swing to like in the beginning of ebooks, I was like, I'm never gonna read ebooks. And and then I started reading ebooks, and then I was reading almost exclusively ebooks for years. And so just in the last couple of years, I really gravitated back toward reading physical books. So I've got a lot of physical books. I keep buying physical books. As a matter of fact, when I finished that book, I like gifted myself 5 or 6 physical books. So yeah.
I mean, I read my Kindle and definitely travel with it. But
yeah,
I would much rather, and I don't do everybody's book. If it's on the Kindle, then I probably would put it on the Kindle. But if certain authors, I just want to hold the book in my hand, then those are the ones I buy.
And some I have both. There's a few books where I have both. Well,
there's a couple books I had on my Kindle, and I went to the library and got a copy. So it's like I did buy the book. When I was reading it, then I could put the bookmark in to see how far I was.
Yes. Oh my God. And we had so many comments about how good Black Cake was. So now that has definitely shot back to the top of the list.
Oh. And of course, if Obama recommends it, we should all run out and get it.
And D.L. White says, my hands have to be busy if I listen to audio.
Right.
Okay. And then Tanya says, with this vision, I do 95% audio. So yeah, audio books are huge. And so that's one of the things I've always like with some publishers where they don't do as many of their books in audiobooks. I always wondered about that because like audiobooks are huge now and so many people are listening to audio. So okay. So one of the questions I want to make sure I get a chance to ask you is because we know that there's been so many changes in the publishing industry over the years. the publishers, like, it's like cannibalism, basically. They keep eating each other until there's less and less, major publishers left in this industry or whatever. And then things have changed, continue to change. So, for instance, things like censoring and book banning have become big again, or on the rise again. And of course, mostly are targeting marginalized communities, Black authors, queer authors, authors of color. But what are some of the biggest changes that you have seen in the industry during your career? One of the things you talked about was the diversity, or something you mentioned earlier. So what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in romance in your career? And what are some of the changes you expect or hope to see in the future?
Well, I haven't seen much change in the 29 years. I have seen a lot of rhetoric, a lot of people who are saying things.
That's interesting.
But Beverly Jenkins said, "I'm tired of you all talking. I want to see some action." And to this day, I would say there's really not a whole lot of action. There are, attempts at it. RWA had one year had a person come in who had done a lot of surveys on the industry and how and on the different ethnic groups and their representations. And it was only open to a few people. Every editor was open to them, and then some authors were in there. The next year it was standing room only, because everybody in the world wanted a ticket to that. Since that time, I don't see anything that really changed. I had a long talk with the CEO at Avon, who was telling me all these things that Avon was doing, and so I told her, that's all internal. None of us hear it. None of us see it. We don't see it on the shelves. We don't see it in your rhetoric. We don't see it in your detail pieces that you put out. And of course, I told Harlequin, standing up in the room so everybody could see me, that I had picked up every piece of paper that Harlequin put out that year, and there was not a single Black author in any of it. Not a single one. And you always kept, and that was a time when they had the theme that they were going with was like see Harlequin or read Harlequin. I can't remember what it was, what the words really said, but they didn't put it. The very next year, every one of those editors and the vice president came up to me to say, we put a book in. It was Brenda Jackson. It was one book. They did not, when they had, and we went up to them the year that Arabesque, I think it was, turned 10 years old. And they did nothing. They did nothing. They did not mention it at all. But the year before that, when Silhouette became 25 years, it was a big spread. I mean, we had this huge cake. We had everything, all of this stuff about Silhouette books. And so I asked him, how come you're not doing anything? This was the next year when it happened with Arabesque. It's like, well, why is nothing being done about Arabesque books? He says, well, we didn't start Arabesque. I go, you didn't start Silhouette either. You bought Silhouette. You bought Arabesque.
Wow.
So after that, I was never called on again to speak. So that's one of the things. Diversity did not change. There was always a reason why they should not do it. There's no audience. Black people don't read. That was said to my face. And I go, oh, I didn't know how to read. I'm glad you told me. But see, I was very vocal because a lot of authors are afraid that if they speak out, they'll never be published by them again.
Yeah.
And if you do make some kind of demand or some kind of, I don't want to use the word threat, but something that you're going to do if they don't or if they do, and you have to be willing to back that up.
Yeah.
Because I told them once I would not sign this contract if you're only going to give me 2% on audio on what were those sales? They were book club. They had book clubs. And on the book club sales, you only got 2%, where you got 6% on the others, and 6% is low anyway. So I told them I wouldn't sign the contract. And fine, the book is done, but I'm not signing that contract. So I was willing to walk away.
Yeah.
And they came back and changed it to 4%. But I realized no matter what they changed it to, I was going to have to accept it because I had told them I wouldn't do it for that. I didn't say what I would do it for. So, but that you have to be willing to back yourself up. And people say, I'll never be able to publish with them again. And it's like, yes, you will. Because if they want a book you got and they think they can make money, they're going to say it. And the editors change. Send it to somebody else. So those were just some of the things that I was willing to do that many other people weren't. They were just too afraid.
I feel you on all of that. Because definitely, I definitely, when we have, like, because we have those different meetings or whatever, they'll have author meetings or whatever online, and I will ask things directly. And you can ask anonymously, and I never ask anonymously because I feel like it's more powerful to be like, hey, I asked this question, and I don't care who knows that I asked it. I want you to know I asked that question. So yeah, but that is always a thing you have to think about. It's like, okay, if I ask this and it causes a stink or whatever, what are the consequences going to be, and am I willing to deal with that? At this point, yeah, I am. But so I can definitely understand, why for some people they might be afraid to do that. But then again, indie publishing has opened up a whole lot of stuff for everybody, so where there's a whole lot of folks who have made careers off of,
Right. And
off spite,
refuse.
off of spite, going to somebody and they're like, they don't accept them or whatever. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to show you. And so that could be a powerful motivator, truly.
I did, they have those groups that, they want to discuss this or discuss that and ask you for suggestions, and then they never take them. So
that is also frustrating. That is also frustrating.
Now, I don't want to say everything is bad in the last 29 years because there have been some good things. I mean, they've hired more Black editors, and those people have bought Black books. On the diversity side, I can't remember that they have added people to different groupings. Like Harlequin had, I don't know if they still do, a lot of series books, like 12 authors, each one writing a book. They have a name for that. Continuity series.
Yes.
Books. And I saw very little diversity in those lines. I think it's gone now, though, because the authors started doing it. They would get 3 or 4 people together and decide they wanted to write 4 books in a fictitious town that they had set up. So they made up their own Bible for it and then presented it to an editor or multiple editors because of the people. They may have had different editors. And if one of them bought it or went into the project with them, then they would get that. I have seen also that I made suggestions. Like I said, they didn't follow, but I made suggestions on how when they wanted to get more authors to have more sales. I made a suggestion that you take an author who isn't making all these sales and compare them with one of the New York Times authors that they had, and use a book that had already been published, so they didn't have to go and ask the author to write another book because she's already got a contract. They gave it to, and I told them specifically I wanted to be one of those authors. They gave it to 2 other authors. I did get it 3 years later, but my name is so small on the cover. I mean, the big author's name is big on the cover. Mine is so small on the cover that you don't even see it. And it says, and a book by. No picture. Oh, it did make money. I mean, I made the one of those lists with it, but it really wasn't my book that they were looking at. It was the bigger name authors whose book that was. So there are things that I think would work for diverse authors that nobody will take a chance on. They just won't do it. They go with the bottom line. If we use this author, we'll make this much money. If we use this author, we may not even break even.
Mm.
So they won't take that chance.
Yeah. And I also feel like there's a bigger, there's a lot more forgiveness for authors who are not Black or not authors of color, that, like, oh, that didn't do that well, but we're still going to give them, these additional books or whatever. Whereas I feel like you don't see that as much.
Well, you're paying the overhead. So because I asked that question, if the book doesn't earn out, why do you keep buying books from me? Because I have an accounting head too. I have a degree in accounting, and it's like that doesn't make financial sense until I figured out. It's like, wait a minute, you're paying the overhead, so they can use the rest of the money for the bigger name author.
Interesting. There's lots of interesting things. So I definitely feel like we see a lot more. I feel like we see a lot more. There's a lot more visibility on some. Like I feel like there's a handful of Black authors and authors of color that we see more of. But there's just, like you said, there's still a lot of room for improvement.
I think
there's a lot of room for improvement still.
Right,
and I also feel like it goes in waves. I feel like, okay, after George Floyd, there was a huge surge in wanting to talk diversity and all this kind of stuff. And I do feel like that has kind of waned.
Oh yeah, because we had a pandemic, and then we had an idiot president. Excuse me, anybody who likes him. And then we had other things, other newsworthy things that took those things off the table. They may still be going on, but they're so far in the back of the room that you won't get them, because now that lawsuit that's going on, that they settled on, by the way.
I saw that. I heard that today.
I heard that just
on NPR. I listen to NPR.
So there's just things that take it off the front page.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get it back there.
Sherry says, I'm thankful for Reese and others who have enlightened me to the wonderful world of diverse authors. I feel as if my world has expanded. Thank you, Sherry. That makes me very happy, because one of the things I love doing, period, is just recommending other authors to readers. So it makes me feel really good whenever a reader has discovered an author through me. So yep. See ya. Thank you so much for dropping in. And let me see. Rhonda says, and it's the fact that white authors get a lot more grace. Yep. We learned that during What Publishing Paid Me, for sure. When people shared their numbers in advances, the truth came out. Yeah, that was stunning to me. Like, I knew that there was a difference in what white authors were making, even debut white authors were making compared to what Black authors were making, but literally seeing that, I'd have to write 10 books to get what this person got as a debut. You know what I'm saying? That was just mind blowing to me. And I'm still a little effed up over that. I'm not going to lie. I'll just be honest.
I asked a white author when I first got published first got published at Harlequin, right? She said, after your third book, you can quit your day job. No. I mean, they did things that, this is all the negative stuff. They did things like when the stores bought Harlequin books, they bought the whole pack. So if Silhouette Special Edition came out with 6 books a month, stores bought all 6. They had contracts to buy those. So every group that they bought, they had to buy all 6. So if you want 10 books, you would get 10 packs of books. When when they brought Kamani, they had to be pick and choose. You could buy one book and no other. So even though they put out 4 books a month, the stores could decide, no, we don't want that. We just want this one. And of course our advances were much, much lower than our white sisters' advances, even if they were writing in the same line. Now, there's also the thing about, where you are in your career. So somebody who's higher up in your career, of course, gets a higher advance. But our advances were so low, they were practically off the page. And then when the economy tanked and they reduced everybody's, ours practically went to net zero. And when they first came out with the ebooks, people did get zero advances. And then they'd write the book and they were supposed to get royalties. Well, you don't see the number of units that were sold, so you don't really know what your advances are, what your royalties are. They are what they tell you they are. So unless you do an audit, which costs money, and you're not in the higher echelons, you can't afford that. So I know one person did it. One of the Black authors did it. They settled. They gave her money, and then they didn't buy another book.
See, and that goes back to what we were talking about before. It's just like, there's so many things. So many things.
But we did go through the door, and that helped, because those people who come in through the door now came through because we got there, and we wrote books that were good. They weren't trashy novels or some other kind of negative connotation associated with a Black romance. So we wrote those, and now and I know our readers who are now writers, because they read them and took whatever they could take out of them, the same way we took out what we could get out of a white book, because that was all that was available when we started, or when I started. So you took those books and you wrote a story like that. You just made it Black, and you made it authentically Black, meaning you use the backgrounds that Black people would do. And Black people have all kinds of backgrounds. We have welfare mothers and we have CEOs. So there's a huge gambit, just like our skin tones, the same thing. We go everything from look like white to black, black, black. My mother passed for white. And I didn't figure that out for years because even though after she died, I figured it out, because she worked at Walgreens. It was a 5 and 10 cent store that had a lunch counter, but it was not Walmart. It was not Woolworths. It wasn't Woolworths. We lived in DC, where I couldn't go to the park because it was for whites only, and I didn't know this. But we as kids were absolutely forbidden to go in there while she was working. And we couldn't even go to the window and look in. And so later on, I figured that out. That's why we couldn't go there.
Wow.
So, she did. She looked white. To me, she looked yellow, but, white. She looked white. She had good hair, the good hair. And, yep, she did it. So there were things, because, they didn't like Black people working the lunch counter.
Wow. That's a fascinating history that might end up in the story.
No, that's not in the story. I haven't written a historical, but it was in 1899. It's set in 1899. So this would have been the 1950s, or it would have been the 50s. So no, I don't know if I don't know if I want to go back there. I have a hard time even watching movies because they're so hard to read the things that they do to Black people that I don't know that I could write it either.
All right. I know we need to wrap this up, and I'm going to wrap this up soon, but keep asking good questions. So okay, let me really quickly pose this question. Mickey Black asked, how did you feel when Kamani was dissolved?
I was extremely disappointed. That was right at the time when all the words of diversity were coming in. They were having all these meetings. They were talking about how to incorporate Black books into the media that they were selling. One publisher was doing this, another one set up this, and then Kamani dissolved. But Harlequin is known for buying their competition and getting rid of it. So they didn't buy Kamani. They developed Kamani. Then they bought Arabesque from BET Books, and they brought in a woman to be she had a higher version name than, but she was over the whole thing. It wasn't executive, but she was an executive there, and she made all the decisions, and she did a lot to sabotage us. And we made a lot of money when we were under Kensington, and then when it went to BET, it just went away. So you're losing your audience, you're losing your pay. So the books aren't selling that well. And I found out at one bookstore when I went there that the people who come in, the salespeople who come in to tell them about the upcoming books, did not even bring Kamani stuff.
Whew. Okay, that takes me to
we have to end on a positive note now.
Well, yeah, we're gonna try to do that, but it's okay. I'm gonna end with that one. So that'll be my positive note one. But this one right here.
Okay.
Hey, Brianna Girl says, and some stores don't even carry lines, though I have noticed that different lines are being put in the stores. For example, my local B&Ns are now carrying Harlequin Historical and Romance. Okay, I'm gonna say this that I have not said aloud outside to other people before. But as many of you, I'm not gonna say as many of you know, as some people may know, Desire is supposed, that line is ending.
Oh, I didn't know.
I don't think there's been any formal announcement of it, but their Desire is ending. So I said it. But I personally, I'm not gonna blame, but I'm gonna say I find it interesting. Let me put it this way. I find it interesting that I started to notice that one of the things I was super proud of with Desire is it was one of the most diverse imprints we had toward the end, and now it's one of the most diverse imprints out there. There's authors who are Indian, who are Asian, who are Native American, just all these different folks we're having. So anyway, I found it really interesting that as the line became more diverse, my local Walmarts in my area here is zone rural, but it's really suburban. Okay. But I noticed my two closest local Walmarts suddenly weren't carrying Desire anymore. The more diverse the line got, and of course, it had a lot to do with the political climate and stuff too. You were seeing a lot more of the love inspired and Amish romance and stuff like that. That's great. But all of a sudden, all these gorgeous covers that were sexy, whatever, with these Black and brown faces, I wasn't seeing that line being carried.
They got to buy all the books.
Which I find it super interesting because Presents is also super sexy, right? But and they're becoming more diverse, but a lot of the diversity there is written by white authors. So I just find it interesting. I just found that interesting. I'm not going to say there's a connection, but I do find it interesting that, this line suddenly gets super diverse and it's great and all these wonderful stories or whatever. And then suddenly I'm not seeing it as much in these Walmarts that are suddenly now carrying all of this, like, kind of.
Yeah. I'm surprised to read this, that they're carrying Harlequin Historical, because I don't think Harlequin Historical was sold in the United States. You had to order it. I have a friend who writes for them, and you send their information to England. And the books, they were not reviewed when they used to have Romantic Times. They were not reviewed in Romantic Times unless the author sent it. At Harlequin used to send all the books for the month themselves out to the reviewers at there, but they did not send Harlequin Historical. Now, and they weren't sold in the bookstores here in the U.S. So now I didn't know how they were getting the books. Maybe they were sold in Canada and other English-speaking countries. They were there, but I don't know why they weren't here unless the author got the bookstore to order them specifically. And you can't cover the United States. You can cover your local bookstore, but that's it. My local Walmart, and I live in a very cosmopolitan, I'll call it, area. We have lots of Indians and Middle Eastern people, Japanese people, and then we have all the whites and all the blacks. But the stores, the majority of the people in that Walmart, whenever I go there, are Indian. But they don't. They have Harlequin Romance, and they would have the one that's the suspense novel. Inspired. They have a lot.
So Intrigue. I feel like that's consistently you see Harlequin Intrigue in almost all.
Yeah,
you'll always see romantic suspense because they have two lines: the Intrigue and the romantic. I don't always see romantic suspense. As a matter of fact, I haven't been seeing.
Then we have the love inspired and the section one.
But those I definitely see those. I see the love inspired.
And the others, no other line. We don't. Desire used to be there, but Desire, I noticed, wasn't there anymore, but you never know whether or not they just sold out.
No, just I noticed more than a year ago that my local
In
big
my
box
Target, our
big box
Target, which,
store wasn't carrying
which
those
is
two
also
lines.
close to the Walmart, has reduced the space so much that you have the hardcover bestsellers,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and,
another thing. Yeah.
and you'll have the softcover bestsellers, and then you'll have a lot of children's books or wimpy kid books,
Yeah,
the middle
yeah.
graders. But
Definitely the footprint, the space, the sales space
and
for
the magazines
category has
have
been reduced overall, period. So like even in stores that carry the different categories or whatever, the number of category lines that they've reduced significantly. The number
But
of
on
categories.
a good point, we have more Black books that are books available than before. So there are people who are writing, and there are people who are getting published or self-publishing themselves. I don't think they can get the stores to put them in there. Barnes and Noble does not do um, self-published books. That's my daughter. And so I'm thinking that you asked me about the future, what I would like to see. I would like to see um, more balance. I would like the books to be available when you go to the store, so you don't actually have to order it. We only have one bookstore. We have Barnes and Noble. We have Books a Million, basically, as the stores. The number of independent stores went down. I don't think they have come back. Um, so I'd like to see those books be available and available where people can find them. So if they're on some internet somewhere at bookstores there, I would like them to be upfront and available. Excuse me, the coughing is back. So, and I'd like more people to read them. I don't just mean, publish to the Blacks or market to the Blacks if they're Black books, and then market to the white, market to everybody if they're white. But
yes,
let's
that
read.
was I feel like it was a huge issue with past lines that did not do well, is that they were only marketed very narrowly. And then you're surprised that the sales are not there, but you didn't put any effort into marketing widely.
They didn't put any effort. Even if they only marketed to, say, the Black community, they didn't even do that well. I would suggest it to them. It's like, you should market to the sororities, the Black sororities. I mean, first of all, these are women with money, and these are people who like to read. Nothing. even down to the point of having when they have their conventions, they have thousands of people come to these regionals and then come to their national committee conference, and they have the places where they have work selling things in like a convention center, and you have a table and you have whatever you want to sell. We told them to go there, either give the books away or sell them for $1. They didn't do it.
So many things, Miss Shirley. Okay, so let me wrap up with these last few. For one thing, for a positive note that we're going to end on before I ask you this next question is Rhonda McKnight says, people like you, Shirley, kick the door open for people like me. And that is absolutely true. And we are very appreciative for everything that you've done. I was so glad to be able to be there for the Legends of Romance
conference
awards that you got at the Raw experience in Old Town, Virginia in the fall, and I got to sit at your table, and I was so
she was
excited.
at my table.
I got to sit at your table, so I was so excited. So that was wonderful, and we appreciate so much.
Well, Terry McMillan kicked the door open for a lot of us. When she wrote Waiting to Exhale, and white people read it. And it's like, this is a really good book. And then all of the, that was not a romance, but we came after. So there's always somebody who opened the door for the people behind them, say. And as a legend, it feels so strange to say that. I am glad to open doors for for anybody, and to advocate for them, because we advocated for a lot of white people, and the black people did benefit, but they weren't there at the time. And it still works. I mean, what came after that is just more and more, and our stories are richer. They have things that people don't know. They have a learning experience that they can talk about. And you can read. I mean, when I first read Amy Tan's first book, it's like that could be me. Didn't matter that the woman was Chinese. We had the same experience.
Yeah.
So, they might find. That's why I used to enter the reader all the time. I said it only cost me $5 per book to get 5 people to read it.
Yeah.
Maybe they would think these aren't so bad. That was my rational.
Never thought about that. All right. So the next question I was going to ask you, and Darnell asked it, so I'm going to let Darnell ask. What are you working on now? What can we expect from you next?
Well, next is I have a book coming out next month. It's called His Montana Sky. His Montana Star, which seemed to me to be a historical title, but it's not. It's about a woman who was a stunt coordinator in Hollywood who had a stunt that went wrong. And the hero is an engineer, and they decide to redo the stunt. And we got to fall in love on the way. But now that was a book that I didn't think would pass muster, because it dealt with Hollywood and stunts. It's like, who'd be interested in that?
I love that though.
I was.
And I love that it's different.
So it comes out next month. And so I'm working on another Harlequin. I have a contract for one more book with Harlequin. So I'm working on that. And that's the one I mentioned was the Christmas story. It's going to be a Christmas story. I haven't worked all the details out, but I started writing it anyway. And I'm a plotter. So that's what's next on it. It doesn't have a date yet, because unfortunately it was one of the books I had the contract during the pandemic. And the pandemic shut me down. So yeah, I didn't write for a year. Yeah. So my book that's coming out now was the first one that was due. It was due in 2020. That was the year we had the pandemic. It was due in 2020. Mm-hmm. So they got it last year. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why my book that's coming out next week, it's like almost 3 years between the two books. It's because the pandemic really did.
I love the book. I love the Montana book. I liked the characters. I liked everything about it. I just couldn't get up and write it. Mm-hmm. I had it plotted out. I knew the whole story. But it was just so much, I don't know, depression, because a friend of mine pointed out, you're depressed. And I've never been depressed before, so I didn't even recognize that.
Yeah.
But, eventually, I don't know that I'm over it. I don't take any medication, but and I do talk to a lot of writers on a daily basis. We email each other and ask how you're doing, how far have you come with your writing. And in February, my chapter does like the nano thing. We can't do it in November; we're too busy. So we do it in February, and we write 30,000 words in 28 days, and I wrote 35,000.
I saw that. That's smart. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because that is I love nano, and it helped me get my start as a writer, but it is a really bad time of the year.
Really bad time.
It's a terrible time of the year to write. So yeah, that's good. Okay, so first of all, thank you again for being here. We appreciate it so much. It was such an informative conversation.
I've never done one of these.
Informative and entertaining. And so, but tell readers how they can connect with you online.
Well, I do have a Facebook account. My name, Shirley Hailstock's there. I have email, of course. And if you just Google me, you'll find my website comes up first if you Google it, and from there you can find the Facebook. I'm on Twitter, but I rarely go there. And what's the Facebook, Twitter, and what's the other one? There are 3 of them, right?
Instagram. Are you on Instagram?
Instagram. I have an account, but like I say, Facebook's the one that I look at more
So
than.
let me ask you, do you have a newsletter?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I definitely included your website and your Amazon page uh, in the description.
Uh-huh.
So you can go there and for her website, and from there can they find your other, like your sign up for your newsletter and stuff like that?
How do I get there? Just put it in the chat up
No,
here.
no, I already it's already in the description. The your I put your website in there, and I put your Amazon page in the description of the show. So anybody, whether they're on YouTube or on Facebook, if you look at the description of the show, you'll see Miss Shirley's website, and you'll see her Amazon page to be able to find her and her list of books. So,
Okay, I actually don't see anything on the screen.
yeah, you're not gonna see it here, but it's on the main YouTube screen or where it's
Oh,
listed.
okay.
Yeah.
I can go to you.
Yeah, so if a person's coming to YouTube to see the show, they'll be able to see the description and they'll see it there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but I can also try to drop it in the comments as well. But please tell us the name of your book again.
His Montana Star.
I like it. I like the whole concept of the stunt double and stuff. So
I
that's
watched
pretty
so
neat.
many stunts.
Did you really?
My hero does stunt riding. He's learning how to stunt ride just because he wanted to get close to the heroine.
Oh yeah, I like that. There you go. So I just popped it into the comments or
They don't fall off the horse.
so I popped your website into the comments and all of that. So okay, so there's a lot of comments I'm gonna have to read after. I'm so sorry. I'm already kept y'all 2 hours. I cannot keep y'all any longer. So, but thank y'all so much for joining us. Thank you, Miss Shirley, for being here and for being so honest and sharing your experience of 29 years, and and giving us your honest thoughts about what's happening and not happening right now. So yeah, so it makes me be like, yeah, keep fighting. So, I gotta keep fighting.
That's the only way. But even if you were to take the race out, I mean, a lot of people have had that experience. I mean, have had that experience of being rejected time after time after time, and then finally getting published. I mean, I can't remember any of the people who had were major authors who got rejected like 150 times. Go, we don't even have 150 publishers. But
hey, one of the people I remember, oh my God, I cannot think of her name right now. Oh my God. Oh, it just went out of my head.
Yep.
But I remember she writes the mystery novels with the was like a number in all of 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Oh yeah, murder one. I mean one. She died.
2 for the money, like that. Anyway, I remember her talking about all the rejections that she got, and it just kept that. Just kept that. So but thank you again. Thank y'all for joining us. Make sure you like the show and subscribe. That helps it get found by other viewers, and share the show as well. If you have more questions, comments, drop them in the comments. I'll pass them along if I can't get to them.
Yeah, or if she wants to put my fan mail email in there, you can put that there too.
Can they access it from your website? Because I did drop the website. I do have a website, right?
It's Shirley Hailstock fan at Gmail.
Oh, okay. There you go.
If anybody wants to send me a question, I'll try to answer it. As the best I can. I do a lot of indie publishing now. I'm finishing up. There's a series of books I wrote called I was going to call them the Carters, but they're not the Carters. And I'm working on getting those up on online, because I've gotten them all scanned, but you get scanning errors and you get words that don't make sense. So you have to go through and read them, and in some cases, I'm updating them to the point. Well, these have been published, so I don't have. Well, maybe I do, because if you have for books that were contemporary, we had no cell phones. We had phone booths,
Yes, that's true.
videotape, things like that.
That's
So
true.
if I
That's
find
true.
that, film instead of digital things, so there were certain words I could globally find, but then there are things that aren't. But most of it is trying to. You're not that old, so we had already gone into that segment of history where we weren't no longer using videotapes and camcorders. Um, we were using phones. You'd have to have a reason why you couldn't find a phone. Your battery's gone in the thing and you didn't bring the charger
Yeah, yeah,
in the
which is
car.
quite common. It's quite common. So,
So those things I'm updating because as much as I can, they will become history when the next big thing comes along.
I hear
AI
you.
is coming along. So but I don't want to put one out that has a videotape in it or
Yeah, don't do
something
that.
that's recent history that I could have fixed.
All right. Thank y'all so much again for joining us. Thank you again, Miss Shirley, for being here. So all y'all have a good night. And
Yeah.
don't forget, like I said, don't forget to like and share the show. Appreciate you so much. And next week, next show will be on May the 2nd. Um, author Megan Frampton will be my guest, and we'll be talking about reasons why you need to get into those scandalous historical romances. And then on the May 16th, I'll be talking to a panel of authors. We'll be talking about the importance of body diversity and body positivity in romance. So those are coming up. If you love author talks, don't forget to check out the Brown Book series with my friend Shay Baby. The link to her show is down here as well. So, and I think you've talked to her, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Yep. So definitely check out Shay Baby in the Brown Book series. So thank y'all so much. Talk to you soon. Take care and have a good night.
Bye bye. Thanks for coming.